Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has returned to Abuja from New York, where he attended the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, and then Paris, where we understand he observed a short break. The president's convoy was spotted arriving at his official residence in the Aso Rock Villa at about 9:47 p.m. local time on Friday. At UNGA, the Nigerian leader condemned the spate of military coups in Africa, describing them as unreflective of the collective aspirations of Africans. He also said their pervasiveness does not imply Africa's support for unconstitutional change of government, but a demand for solutions to perennial problems. I'm being joined live by Suleiman Akonde, who is a public affairs analyst, to talk about this issue. Glad to have you join us, Mr. Suleiman Akonde.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now straight to the matter on ground. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has returned from Abuja from New York, where he attended the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Can you provide an overview of Nigeria's key contributions or initiatives discussed during, the president's participation at the UNGA session, and how you think they relate to the nation's development?
Okay, thank you. If you remember, this is the president's first outing at the UNGA. And I must tell you, all analysts and public commentators alike have commented the outing generally. The president highlighted about 5 issues bordering Nigeria and by extension Africa. The first, he spoke about the issue of poverty in in Africa and Nigeria, and he also talk about the issue of coup d'etat, that is number of coup that has spring up in West Africa, most especially. And he also spoke about the issue of climate change as it affects Africa. What he has gone there to do is to tell the world that it's not about if Nigeria is ready for the BM for doing business with the world, but if the world is ready to tap the enormous potentials that is in Nigeria and by extension Africa. So I must tell you, this is a very resounding statement from the president, and it won't have get any better. And you can see we have really taken our place in the Committee of Nations to really tell the world that, okay, this is a nation that is open to opportunities. And you can see there are a lot of problems that is facing us in Nigeria, right from issue of poverty down to insecurity and climate change are well highlighted in his speech at UNGA. Remember, part of Lagos was also flooded of recent, and the recent prediction by NIMED shows that about 17 states should brace up for issue of flooding, which is as a result of climate change. So personally, and I think on a general note, it is a very good outing for the nations and the president in particular, and the
Okay,
president.
right. Okay, Mr. Akonde, let me take you up on what you made reference to, which is coup in Africa. Now, President Tinubu mentioned the condemnation of military coups in Africa during his UNGA speech. How do you believe Nigeria stands on this issue? Sort of aligns with foreign policy goals, and what impact might it have on regional stability, so to speak?
Yeah, we cannot remove the fact that Nigeria is a big brother when it comes to the issue of Africa. And whenever we take a stand, it's as if 50% of the whole continent have taken a stand already. And the president, if you remember, is not just the president of Nigeria, or at the same time, is the chairman of ECOWAS. That is, he has the responsibility to keep the West African region safe. So as far as Nigeria is concerned, we must be able, I think we should also be worried when our neighbors are being overtaken by military juntas. So one thing is that we must, the president, as he said a lot of times, that we must preach the gospel of democracy and tells these military juntas that democracy has come to stay in Africa. So there can always be development in an area where there is peace and stability. And if you see most of these countries, they have been thrown into chaos among other things. So Nigeria needs to stay its ground. And I can tell you that, like, so look at Niger, for example, we have about 5 states in Nigeria that share border with Niger. So whatever happens in Niger automatically also affects us. And I must tell you that most of even these states, people have brothers, they have sisters, they have relations in some of these countries. So Nigeria is always concerned when these countries are not stable.
Now, the president emphasized the need for homegrown solutions, African solutions to perennial problems, in our region. How do you think Nigeria can leverage its participation in all these international outings, recently UNGA, to collaborate with other nations and also international organizations in finding a lasting solutions to our own unique problems?
Yeah, and I think that has always been when the president says it, I was very happy. And I've always argued that our problem is homegrown and our solution too should also be homegrown. So the idea of bringing a foreign solution and trying to copy and trying to duplicate it here to see how it was, we have seen how it has failed a lot of times. That is why we need to also rejig our research institutions, the CSO and the NGO group who must come together to find a lasting solution to our problem. Look at the issue of climate change. We've always argued Nigeria and by extension Africa are not the main contributors to issue of climate change. But you may be surprised that we are the most affected by the effect of climate change. The reason is simple. It's because our mitigation approach, our level of preparedness is poor. So until we need to develop a homegrown solution to most of these problems, and we need to look inward, go back to our research institutes, our universities, our think tank group, come up with a homegrown solution that is tailored towards our needs and our wants.
Okay. I like the fact that you alluded to, climate challenges, which was just concluded. The climate change was just concluded. The summit concluded recently. Now, the president of Nigeria has visited several countries during his time abroad. So many countries visited so far. How do you think all of these diplomatic outings, international outings, and engagements, how can we learn from them? Countries like India, the United States, the United Arab Emirates, how can we learn from these countries and sort of adapt it into our own society here?
Yeah, it is a known fact that no country can live in isolation. And you always learn from the success story of each of these countries. Take India, for example. I think one thing they were able to do very well is the issue of small and medium enterprises. And the greatest problem facing Nigeria is poverty. So if we can empower those small and medium enterprises, I believe poverty will be cut short to the barest minimum. Likewise, other advanced countries like the United States and UK that as you rightly mentioned. So all these countries have something that we can pick and at least replicate such things here. Most especially as it has to do with the issue of poverty. Look at United States, for example. They have one of the best social security benefit program in the world. All these are things we can copy to at least, if really we are ready to move about 100 million people out of poverty as promised by the present administration. So we have a lot to learn from all of these countries. But we must not forget, as we are bringing this solution down here, we must make sure that it fits into our peculiar problem and see how we can tailor it to solve our problems in this nation.
All right, thank you so much, Suleiman Akonde, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you for having me.